Hey everyone, it's Matt Chapman here on At the Races, the Jumps preview show, very kindly sponsored by Betfair. The object here is to look forward to the jump season ahead in four main categories: the established hurdlers, the established chasers, novice hurdlers and novice chasers. When you've got that big field to look at, what you need is two monster guests. And I think it's fair to say when you look in the screens, we've got them. Barry Geraghty, of course, the second most successful jockey in the history of the Cheltenham Festival. He's won all the big four races there: the Champion Chase, the Champion Hurdle, the Gold Cup, the Stayers Hurdle. He's won Grand National. He's basically won it all. And you can see that. Look at the trophy cabinet. And then we have Kevin Blake, who's not got a trophy cabinet. Great to have them on board with us, though. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Hey, thanks, Matt.
It went so much better in rehearsal. It really did. Barry actually moved in the rehearsal. He actually looked alive. Anyway, look, great to have you with us. And what are the kind of things we're going to discuss? Well, Yvonne Barwick on Twitter really gets the show going in many ways for the themes ahead. Yvonne says, do they go for the Gold Cup with Samco? Is Shiskin the new Altior? Can Altior still win a Queen Mother? Should Fahim be retired? Riders on the Storm this season. So many questions, Yvonne. I'm not sure we'll get through them all, but we will do our best. So let's start then with the established hurdlers. And in that field, we will begin with the Champion Hurdle contenders. And of course, the defending champion is Epatante, who was ridden by a now well past it jockey who's hung up his boots at 4-1, currently in the anti-post list. But in many ways, forget about the odds. These are just to give you a rough idea of the bookmakers' horses that might be going in the Unibet Champion Hurdle. Barry, look, one of the most popular questions on Twitter has come to you about these McManus horses. And in particular, Bouverdere in there at 20-1 at the moment, Epatante at 4-1. At the beginning of last season, Bouverdere was going to win the Champion Hurdle again, and a lot of people thought Epatante would be doing nothing. It's amazing how quickly it changed.
I know, it was. And great to see Bouverdere is back in training, and it looks like he could be out shortly after Christmas, so that's brilliant. But it was a very... it was surreal at the time for Bouverdere to be sidelined like he was, and then for Epatante to step in at Christmas and fill the void.
OK, so let's just get straight to it. What hope do you think there is for Bouverdere to come back to his very best? Because he is kicking on a little bit now, and he has had that nasty injury.
He did, but the injury itself will, when he is back in work and it's cleared up. So it's not like a tendon injury or a ligament injury that could flare up again. This is healed and he will be okay. He did miss a season and he is pushing on a little in years, but he still is a class act, and I think he's definitely there to be respected. But her performance in Cheltenham, her performance at Christmas, and even her improvement from Christmas to Cheltenham, and the likelihood of improvement again. I saw her during the summer. She looks amazing and has strengthened up more again. So, at her age, she's open for massive potential.
As Barry says, Epatante was brilliant at Christmas. Barry, I must just ask you one other thing. Were you really, you can tell us now, you've hung up your boots, you're not getting the millions from JP anymore. So, tell us, were you really a believer? Oh man, I wasn't a believer at all. And what she did in the Champion Hurdle forced me to be a believer, because, I mean, she won the Champion Hurdle like an absolute monster.
Well, Nicky said to me, or he asked me when we came in after winning the Christmas Hurdle, he says, what do we do now? I just win the Champion Hurdle. It was that simple. The ground was a concern on the day, but because she had hit a patch of soft ground at Christmas in Kempton on the far side, and just for a little bit she struggled. But the improvement from Christmas to Cheltenham, the ground didn't matter. She floated through it. She's a very, very classy filly. And as I said, the improvements, and I'm not talking her up when I say it, but there is potential for improvement physically, which is going to lead to improvement on the track as well. So to me, she's the real deal.
Speaking of someone who, of course, physically is in need of all sorts of improvement, Kevin is with us. Great to have you here, Kevin. And look, Epatante is arguably, I know there's a long way to go and wait, etc., but you could say she's a big price, considering how the horse won the Champion Hurdle when you actually look at the list of Champion Hurdle contenders. What do you make of her?
Well, you'd be delighted with what she did last season, Matt. She improved start to start, and I suppose going into the champion hurdle, one of the concerns that was there about her was that she'd gone into the Mayor's Novice the year before, with big expectations and had run poorly. So she had to prove herself at Cheltenham. She duly did. I'd be interested in Barry's thoughts on it, actually, because watching her. I thought in the champion hurdle last March was the best she ever settled in a race. She was quite fiery. I know when she started off with Nikki, she'd race quite freely. I thought she settled quite well. And, given the mistake she made at the third last, which I know people didn't make much of at the time, but that's a vital part of the race. And I thought she did well to recover as well as she did and ultimately win very well.
So obviously she's a big player, Kev, but in many ways, when I look down that list, the horse that just springs straight to my mind is Goshen, who knows what he's going to do because, he hasn't massively set the world alight on the flat. But that Triumph Hurdle success, or what should have been a Triumph Hurdle success, was one of the great moments at Cheltenham for me. I mean, this was a horse that was about to blitz a field.
Yeah, that was one. I think that'll go down for as long as we're all watching racing. I think that'll go down as one of the most just freakishly unlucky things you'll ever see at the Cheltenham Festival. He made the mistake he did. It wasn't a severe mistake, but for his hind shoe to get clasped into his front shoe, and for him to take that little stumble, that was enough to throw Moore out of the saddle. It was freakish. It was very, very tough on all concerned. He was going to bolt up. How strong a Triumph Hurdle it was, I'm not too sure, but he looked like he was going to win it by 10 lengths plus. Funny preparation this season. It's not a typical way for a champion hurdle horse to start off, but we won't judge him harshly yet. I'll be interested to see him back over hurdles. But Matt, as good as a juvenile hurdler can look, it is a big old step up to make from being the best juvenile around to getting up the champion hurdle class. So I wouldn't like to be making big assumptions that he'll come up to it this year, but I'll be fascinated to see how he copes when he goes up in class.
Yeah, it's a very good point made by Kevin. We know how difficult it is the following season, even though the Triumph Hurdle's not quite the same race it was when these kind of things were said 20 years ago, etc. Already this term, of course, we've seen All Mankind absolutely stuffed out of sight at Cheltenham, and he was meant to be one of the big dangers to Goshen in that Triumph. So, Barry, we come on to Abacadabras, because Abacadabras is a horse who's gone very close to beating Shishkin. A lot of people think Shishkin is the next coming. To be fair, would we say that Abacadabras was a bit flattered considering what happened to Shishkin in the Supreme?
No, I think he is a very good horse. I've been writing a bit of work for Gordon lately and actually had a sit on him, and he's got a big engine. So I think he is a big player. I'd say it was a very strong Supreme. I wrote Chantry House back in third, who is a very good horse, and you'd imagine should do well as a novice chaser. Shishkin, I think he's the one for the Arkle, the one they all have to beat. But no, Abacadabras, I think he's an improving horse. He has a lot of pace, and I think he's worthy to be up there at the head of the market.
Barry Geraghty is riding work at Gordon Elliott. Kevin, that's a bit like Messi coming back and teaching the under-5s, isn't it? It's like, hold on. Like, if we don't get a good thing from you, Geraghty, during this show that's absolutely whizzing up the gallops and going to run up a sequence of 5 wins, I will be very upset. Kevin, looking at that champion hurdle list there, is there anything else lurking in there that you're finding just a little bit Blakey sexy?
Well, San Roy is the one that I like, or San Ra, however you want to pronounce it, Matt. You know better than me with your cultural background. But what this horse did in the county hurdle on just his fourth start over hurdles was something else. Barry rode him obviously, so I'll be interested to hear his insights. But he won the county hurdle, pulling an absolute cart, and his jumping on the day was just okay, I thought. So I was watching him very closely at Tipperary on his comeback, and you have to be very encouraged with what he did there. It wouldn't have, it's not champion hurdle form, but just the way he settled and the way he jumped, I thought it showed that he'd improved and progressed and knew a bit more this season round. So he has a bit more improvement to find to get up to champion hurdle level, but based on what he did in the county, if he'd ran in the Supreme, I think he would have had a very, very good chance. And I could definitely see him continuing to rise up the ranks.
So, Barry, I've got to ask you the big question then. Samoa, who would have to give weight, I guess, to Epatante in a champion hurdle. If you had the choice of the pair at this stage, it wouldn't be a very difficult choice, would it?
No, it'd be very hard not to try Epatante. She's proven it. He is a very smart horse, and it was a good performance in the county hurdle on only his fourth run. He was still green, and obviously he jumped reasonably well, but he was immature mentally. But it was a really good performance, and he's a horse like that at his age as well. You know, he has the potential for improvement. It was a good, solid run in Tipperary, and no, I think he's a horse that's going to really creep into contention for a race.
Have you ever won at Cheltenham handicap easier than that, Barry?
Well, he won it well. He won it really well, but I've been lucky enough to ride a few snug winners there. I didn't have to push Days the limit too hard to win the card.
If you've forgotten the list, Barry, just search on Twitter for an old On The Line clip and I'll refresh you of all your Cheltenham Festival winners, much to the chagrin of one of our viewers. I just met Carrie. We must quick mention, Kevin, about Honeysuckle. I mean, for me, she's good, but she's probably not quite a champion hurdler, or am I being harsh?
You'd love to see her given a chance to run it, Matt. You know my thoughts on the Mayor's Hurdle. I think it is what it is, but I think you can take away from races like the Champion Hurdle. What she did in the Irish Champion was very good. You could poke holes at her jumping a little bit that day, but I think she has the ability to certainly be very competitive in a Champion Hurdle with the Mayor's allowance. I know I spoke to Henry de Bromhead a few weeks ago, and he's not ruling it out. They'll have the same choice to make if all goes well between now and then, but you just can't help but feel if they've gone for the Mayor's Hurdle once, they'll probably go for it again, won't they?
Probably will. She's also in the betting, of course, for the Stayers Hurdle. And the Stayers Hurdle already is hotting up a little bit. Paisley Park, of course, a former champion. He was absolutely shocking. But there were many reasons for that, I suspect, in 2019. Benny Didier, we know with Benny Didier that basically that horse runs, it would run in a cellar or a claiming hurdle at Cheltenham if there was one that it could win. Time Hill's in there. Honeysuckle, of course, as I've just mentioned. Envoy Alum, we anticipate going over fences. I imagine Barry scored that. Fabulous was fantastic recently. And Lisnagar Oscar, the defending champion, just ignored by everyone, which surprises me a little bit. We'll get on to my thoughts in a minute. Barry, this is quite an interesting anti-post section, the Stayers, because it's wide open. What takes your eye at this stage?
Paisley Park, you can't write him off on one disappointing run. His form has been rock solid. He was a standout hurdler, say, through the season last year, and he was the banker that disappointed at the festival, obviously. But I would forgive him that. He is the best stayer in training, and he's the one to beat. And 7-1, I think, is a massive price about a horse on one disappointing run.
He is, on paper, the best horse when you go on back form, Kevin. But I'm always worried about horses who, look invincible and then suddenly you realise they're not. There is fragility there after all. What are your thoughts?
I'm sure I'd be with Barry. Like he looked the best staying hurdler by quite a way for the last couple of seasons. He's tailor made for it. Really, he's that lovely sort of efficient horse that you want in your in a top class staying hurdler. Look, you can't get away from the Stayers Hurdle last March. Highly disappointing. But it's probably never wise to write a horse off on one run. He's still only an 8-year-old rising 9. It wouldn't be a shock at all if he bounced back. And like you mentioned at the top there, it's not like we have an outstanding candidate coming through to take him on. Maybe we'll get one in the next couple of months, but right now it looks wide open. And I would say, for argument's sake, if he hadn't run at Cheltenham for whatever reason, a late setback, and he was coming into this season off the back of what he'd been doing for the previous 18 months or so, he'd be a short price fav at the minute, wouldn't he?
I guess. I think Lisnagar Oscar myself is massively overpriced. I mean, was only 4 lengths behind Paisley Park in the run before the Stayers Hurdle, and is a lightly raced horse. Seemed to improve for that real proper test at Cheltenham. Why are you ignoring the defending champion, or do you just not like Rebecca Curtis, Kevin?
No, I think it's a very human thing, Matt, that when things happen that we don't expect to happen, we don't want to believe them. We want to believe it was a fluke. Lisnagar Oscar was obviously a huge price for the Stayers Hurdle, having been beaten behind a few of the main contenders coming into the race. It's just funny how things work out, Matt, because this horse was running in a per temps qualifier at Warwick a couple of months before Cheltenham, and he fell early on. If he had completed that race and finished in the first 6, he almost certainly would have run in the per temps final rather than the stairs hurdle, wouldn't he? But he fell. They went for the stairs hurdle, and he went and won it. So look, it seemed to be an improved effort. If he can run to a similar sort of level again this season, he'll be a contender, but he wouldn't be top of my list, Matt. But I respect your opinion, and I know you're quite sweet now.
So let's check out our horses to follow amongst the established hurdlers. We go to a multiple champion hero rider first. Not you, Kevin. Barry Geraghty, who is your established hurdler to follow in 2020, 2021?
That's just hard to get away from Epatante.
Epatante. He's absolutely out the, hold on, left field. Right. Kevin, what are you fancying amongst the hurdlers?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Sam Raw, as you call him, Matt. He has a bit of the X factor about him, and look, I'll be really interested to see how he gets on when he gets thrown in amongst the big boys, perhaps in the Morgiana hurdle or something like that. But he has loads of gears. He's proven around Cheltenham. There must be more improvement to come, and it wouldn't be a big surprise now if he emerged as a leading champion hurdle contender in the next couple of months.
OK, and in the hope that at the races allow me to do the stable tour, I will go with Lisnagar Oscar, the defending champion in the stairs hurdle. Look forward to seeing you, Rebecca, in the near-ish future. Those are our selections for the established hurdlers. Thank you for watching here on the At the Races Jumps preview show, very kindly sponsored by Betfair. But don't forget, we have 3 more sections for you to enjoy elsewhere on the At the Races YouTube channel. The established chasers, the novice hurdlers, and the novice chasers. Don't miss them.